Hey, hi guys. So I welcome you all to the Open Talk session of this weekend. And the topic of today's Open Talk is application of AI in web development. And we have our speaker Sai Krishna with us, who is a founder and CEO of Elite Seller Technologies. And yeah, from now onwards, it will be from Shruti will be handling the session. So over to you, Shruti, ma'am.
Hi everyone. Sai Krishna, welcome. Can I have you on camera, please?
Yeah, sure.
Great. Thank you so much. So good to be back. Good to interact with all of you again. Today's session is exciting. I am excited because unlike a lot of other sessions where we've been bringing people who have had 10 years, 15 years experience in the industry, today we have somebody who is from a different league. Okay. You'll understand more about it as I talk. But today we have an entrepreneur who's started his business, Elite Seller Technologies, and somebody who's graduated from engineering in 2022, which means last year, right? But if you look at the body of work that he has done, the number of internships he's worked on, the certification that is done, probably that experience is equal to somebody who's been in the industry for 5 to 7 years. So it'll be very interesting to get a unique perspective from somebody who's done so much in a short period of time. Also, because today, Sai Krishna, just to bring you up to date with the audience today, we have graduates and early working professionals from both data sciences and web development domains. So which is why we thought we'll talk about how artificial intelligence can be applied within the web development space, because AI data science is agnostic to domain, right? Whichever domain you're from, data science is something that you can apply. So we'll take that angle for today and let us start. So I will not take up a lot of time. Sai Krishna, I'd love to know more about you. Please tell us about your journey. You've started very young. You've achieved so much already. You're a tech mentor. You're an entrepreneur. You've worked in 10 plus startups. So tell us about your journey. What gave you the motivation to get here so fast?
Hello guys. Well, I started my journey way back in 2021 when I was in third year first semester. Well, yes, just like everyone, I took a course in Udemy and I started as a data science, this Python thing, because of my relative suggestions thing. But what happened is like I was not much into it because I was not interested into it. So later I started exploring the other technologies out there. Then the COVID time period came in, so everything was online. So I had an advantage over there. Eventually, work from home itself, learn more, spend time more eventually, because I was not a person who used to study 24/7 or attend the class itself. So I eventually explored other courses and found Android using Java and Kotlin thing. So after this, I started building a few projects out of it. After completing this Android Oreo course using Java and Kotlin, I eventually applied for more than 170 internships in less than 3 months via Internshala, because there was no one to me guiding this thing, like you have to build this career in this way or you start your journey in this way. And there were no hackathons at the time which I was doing my bachelor course thing or the webinars or boot camps thing to create awareness regarding this thing. So every time I apply for internship, I get an interview with them. They were eventually like asking me, saying this thing like you need to have a real time experience. Either you should work in a real time company or eventually you should have working on a real time project itself. I built like few projects. Then it was very difficult for me to sustain in that thing. It was like 3 months, one side internship. Every single time I was getting rejected thing. I was like questioning myself, like, where did I go wrong? I took a course, I got a certificate, and I done few projects. So then later, after started using LinkedIn, after my sister suggestion, like start using LinkedIn, post in LinkedIn, like I have built this project, I have done this course thing. So by connecting with like-minded people who are into this app development sector, who eventually give opportunities, connecting with HRs or recruited people or CTO people. So this person named Varunar is the founder of DJAP Studio. So he's based out of Kochi, and like he has a base in Kerala too. So he reached out to me in LinkedIn saying like, I have a Flutter opportunity, Sai. Would you like to come in as a freelancer or as a full time? So we had a meet after later this week. We had a meet way back in May 2021, 21st May. Then we had a meet. He sent me this thing like not Android Kotlin, because if you see as Android Kotlin, right, you can only build Android applications. But if you see Flutter, right, you can build cross-platform applications. So that's where I started eventually working on Flutter. That's where I started working on real-time project. But the twist there was like I started working as a solo member. I had no team there. That was my first experience there. I felt like if I did any blunder, will I lose this opportunity or not? So every day I was getting errors day in and day out. I started using Stack Overflow. It was very hard. Trust me. Beginning, you try to write a code. They give you the design screens. They give you the output. They give you deadlines. It's very difficult to manage, but trust me, it's worth it in the end. Like it's worth it completely. And later, worked for 8 months there as a freelancer. Then I applied for a second internship. Then I got it from Publisher Consulting. It's in Delhi based. Then I worked as an intern there. It's a service-based company. They used to get good clients out there. So we used to work on the front end side mainly, and then deploy the app in the Play Store directly using the private keys and the sharp keys. And eventually, I worked in that way. I similarly worked in like 10 plus startups of various sectors in less than a year, working on different projects or different sectors, health sector, a service-based company, or the B2B or B2B company. Later, I started working with a team. That's where a new twist came in, because I used to work as a solo, so I used to set my own timeline or own task accordingly. So when I started working with a team, it was very difficult, but slowly, you'll eventually understand like why we should work in a team or what's the perks or benefits of it. You can eventually share the resources. Charlie, if I don't know particular error which I can solve, the other person can solve it. So we should share the things equally. That's where I started learning the backend, and that's where later my college major project started. And in my college, there were like people were saying like you have to buy a project. So what I did was eventually fought with the entire department itself, talked with the management. Management would support with me. So we were eventually I started building the major project alone itself. Like that was me building a major project solo, not as a team member. So build the entire front end, back end, output, the PPTs, documentation. So that's where things got to change for me. Because out there, companies seek like what kind of major project you build in. Because if you eventually couldn't build a project, they will question the same thing. If you can build a major project in your college, then how could you contribute to the company's project, even if you have a small task? So that's where things got to change for me. I used to get a stipend of 3,000 in the initial stages. Later it went to 5,000, then 7,500. After that, I took 2 months of break and then again resumed. That's where I started getting more opportunities again. I started posting in LinkedIn saying like I have worked this many startups, I have done this much experience, I have done this many projects, uploaded this many apps in the Play Store. So from getting a stipend of 7,500 to I used to get a stipend of 50,000. It was like a 10x increment, like directly into 5x. So that's where I started taking other responsibilities too. So not only working as a front end, a back end, I worked as full stack too. Other than that, I used to work as a portfolio like product manager, a product designer too, or as a tech lead. And later working in multiple startups there, I worked with this company called Loop Cafe, where it's collaborated with 7 state governments, and it's a national project there. So that's where I took as a tech lead role. They hired me as a tech lead, so guiding a young team, eventually working on a bigger project. It's a live in place, so even now it's a good base out there. And eventually, I got offers from these people like makers of Milkshake co-founder, Ablas been there ready. So they started another startup. They went to reach out to me saying like, we start another one. We want you as a tech lead. So another person reached out to me. His name is Gair Motorhead. I think you guys heard about him. He's featured in Shark Tank India too recently. So basically, this guy eventually reached out to me and even asked me to work as a tech lead there. So that's where I started getting opportunities and opportunities. From that's where then later I started my own startup way back in 2022. After working in few startups, getting experience, working in different positions, portfolios, setting up a team. It was very difficult in initial stages to get a team because we were completely bootstrapped. There were no investors into it. So I was the only sole person working in day and day out. So that's where we started and that's where we are going at the moment. And we are also building our own product too. Right now we have a complete in-house team. Other than that, I've been to other like 6 to 7 colleges till late, giving the speeches in and out, guiding it. I'm a tech mentor for like 2 to 3 companies out there, and also mentoring other people personally. Guiding them how to get internships, how to get freelancing, how to earn. Eventually accordingly. That's where my journey went, and that's where I'm here right now.
Great. Good to know. Good to know about your journey. Now, tell me, because you've been working in the web development space, right? What do you
Yes.
feel are the applications of data sciences and artificial intelligence in web development? Because, usually data sciences and AI, these are not specific to any one particular domain. These are usually agnostic to domains, right? They're used across different domains. So where
Got
do
it.
you see somebody who knows data sciences, somebody who's skilled themselves in AI,
Got it.
what role can they play in a domain like web development?
So if you are a data scientist or an AI person who eventually build the chatbots or eventually analyze the data thing, so what you can do is eventually build this kinds of code snippets into it. Help, for example, a team of set of team or company building their own product. They build this particular product where you can eventually involving the AI there, for in terms of chatbot or in terms of helping the developer getting the code ready, or in terms of a chat application where giving the recommendations out there, or eventually even if a person who knows the web development can use an AI in this way. It's like not only just depend on the chat GPT or this GitHub Copilot. You can eventually ask a certain code snippets. You cannot simply ask an entire code to get used to it. You can eventually ask a particular code snippet accordingly and use it, because the chat GPT might give you an entire code which yours and chat GPT's might be completely different. So accordingly you can use this thing particularly by typing this particular things, this what you call this in chat GPT according with the code prompts. So where you eventually get the particular code which you require, not the entire thing, but the code prompts accordingly. Where you can use this code snippets in your web or this applications, and you can fast track your building things.
Right. So chatbots is definitely one thing where there is collaborative opportunities between data science, AI, and web development. I have also come across a specific set of specialists, I would call, who do a lot of analytics on the web page itself to identify how the traffic is moving on a page, right? Based on which the design is refined, and
Yes.
essentially in pages like e-commerce, or a page that is a web page that is meant to convert leads into customers, or convert visitors into leads, right? So to analyze that kind of data also, I have seen teams working, data analysts actually coming up with heat maps and analyzing all that stuff, and then giving a report saying these areas of the website is where you need to put more focus on, or it has to be redesigned.
Got it.
So any
Got
kind
it.
of applications that you see in those areas?
Basically, what we do is we use the ML algorithm into it, where we get to analyze a particular data of it. For example, we are building an health app where we'll analyze like which particular person is clicking on a which particular button to which particular information, by which we can even track it and tell the team like you have to build this design in a systematical manner where people will analyze. Well, eventually they can use it accordingly, or the search flow of it. Eventually generating the leads for the sales team or for the user itself, whichever kind of saving the user info or the preferred credentials outfit. For example, a particular user saves accordingly. So according to that, you're gonna predict things, right? So that way, eventually, you can use these things in the mobile apps or websites accordingly. In the front pages where you can give a particular hints or suggestions accordingly.
Right. So just to add a little more to it, for all the people audience present here, in the field of marketing analytics, especially, right? When it comes to marketing, what is a web page? Essentially, a web page is a marketing tool, and to even design a web page, or to come up with specific areas that have to be included in the web page, marketing analytics is also used. So that is another area where data analysts work, and we also as a company keep getting requirements. And the requirements in these kind of roles is not of IT people. These could be people who have done MBA in marketing and have upskilled themselves in understanding data analytics and basic ML algorithms. These kind of people are hired into marketing analytics, and they analyze thousands and hundreds of web pages to come up with patterns. So that is another area where definitely there is collaboration between data sciences and web development, and there are jobs there also. Sai Krishna, one question that keeps coming up very often:
Okay.
will AI and ChatGPT, will they take away our jobs? Will the jobs become redundant? Why would we need a web developer, or why would we need a data analyst when a ChatGPT can do everything? What is your take on that?
So when you see, right, people often say these things. When even ChatGPT launched, right, where people in the company which I used to work in, they would say, like, yeah, jobs will be going in. But what happened is like to train this model, AI model, you need people on it. AI cannot simply be independent. You have to be dependent on someone. Even if it's a machine, people should feed information to it, like generating the prompts accordingly. It's not like you should that AI will automate everything. You can use AI accordingly, but doesn't mean like AI will take your jobs. Back then, when computers came in, people said like it will take over all the jobs, but eventually it created more jobs. Even similarly here too, AI also will create more and more jobs. It might remove the existing ones, but eventually it will create into 5x. That's what we can say.
That's
We can eventually use AI, accordingly in particular things, not only in this tech part, other parts too. So people will be required more in terms of it to generate prompts accordingly. For that to particularly, there will be roles opening up soon.
right. You're right. So Sai Krishna, this one question, because now in the audience here we have a lot of people who have just graduated from college also,
Got it.
2023 or 2022 as well, right?
Got it.
And many of them are from non-IT domains. They've come from civil engineering, mechanical engineering, and I wouldn't just say engineering. We also have people who've come from BCom backgrounds and MBA backgrounds,
Got it.
in arts also, and math, and different kinds of backgrounds. So, looking at this whole scenario from your perspective, right? How does this transition work? Is there scope for a transition? You being the owner, I mean, the founder and CEO of a company, would you want to hire somebody who's developed these skills, although they do not have the relevant education background? What is your take on that?
So when you see, right, when it comes from which domain you come from, or which background you come from, or which tier 3 college, or which city you come from, where if it comes to campus, little different. But when it comes to outside, right, startups or other companies hiring, right, they don't even see from which background or domain you're coming from. They only see like whether you have skills, whether you have knowledge, whether you have communication skills, whether you have projects you have built up yourself. Self-learning is the main thing they see. Without doing any internships, without doing anything, you build up your own projects, you skilled up yourself, and you solve the own problems which you occurred while building the code. Even me myself, when I hire people, right, I don't see how many backlogs this person has, how much gap this person has after his education, or which background does he come from, which college does he come from. I only see like which skills this particular candidate has it. Does he have a logical understanding? Does he have a problem statement analyzed to it? Even if you have a mechanical background, it's fine. No one will see which branch you're coming from. They only see like what skills you have, what technologies you possess, what latest trending technologies you learned in, how beneficial you can be to the company itself, how you can run in the longer term, and how you can help others in the team too. These are the main aspects anyone out there would see. They don't only see like which branch, only CSE, yeah, only CSE will be coming in, or you have 9 points. No one will see your grades, or no one will see how many backlogs you have. Even if you are a dropout, it's fine. You only seek like you have relevant experience, relevant position to fill in, to fulfill the requirements which are given by the client or the company projects you're working in. The front end, the back end, full stack designing, DevOps, the logical implementation is the main thing. So these are the main factors which would eventually impact a lot rather than seeing the domain which you're coming in. Anyone, even if it may be BCom or BTech, or even if a person doing a master's in US and data science also can come into it. Even if you're doing a mechanical thing, working in another hardware thing, you can come up to the software thing. Doesn't mean like, okay, I've done with this BTech 4 years and after that it's been 2 years gap, right? It's fine. They'll only see like what skills you possess. This is the main thing. I'll keep on repeating this thing, but it's the main thing. Even I see the same. I don't see what resume, how long the resume is. I only see like what they speak and how they build it up. That's it. If they're confident about it, I'm sure that's the main thing. Because even myself, when I was doing this thing, people will only seek like they don't not even see the certificates you have. They only seek like the projects you have built in, which trending technology you have seen or worked with, how experienced you are with, how eventually you can solve a problem. If things so you're building a product with a team, you face an error which not a senior developer can solve it, not other person can solve it. How you can tackle up those things, tackle up those situations accordingly. So these are the main factors which eventually involve or help people out there to get opportunities, even if you have a gap or dropout or backlogs. That's where.
Right. So what you're saying is skills plus the projects that they have done is very important, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
Interview. So how should a candidate talk about their project in an interview?
So, for example, if you are a web developer, so you apply for internship. Think so, you apply for a company, Elite Seller Technology. So, what happens is like you can eventually see starting by yourself what you have done till date, how you started your career, and how you end up started this project. You can say like this is the project I have built up, and you can start representing the project, posting it on a GitHub or a local host. and showing the designs accordingly and showing like where you face the problem and how you solved it. For example, you started coding it and eventually you face this issue while coding it and you cannot find an answer in Google or a Stack Overflow, but you solved it. How you solved it? What kind of logical implementation you have done this project? How complicated or how complex you have built it up? So this way, if you can eventually explain and show it right, company people can understand like, okay, this person have all these qualities. This person doesn't require training out there, so we can take him immediately and give him a head start accordingly, and even he can complete the project in a deadline, and he can guide the team too, which skills he possesses and the team doesn't. So these kinds of things are very important. Doesn't mean they don't see your fancy thing, your college thing. They only see like the project complexity, the logical parameters you have used in, which trending technology you have used in. If you can elaborate these 2 3 points in a very much simplified manner, right, in very short to 5 to 10 minutes, right, that would be very much efficient and effective.
Great. One more question related to that, since we're talking about projects. If our students, they work on a lot of projects through the boot camp as well. But if some of them want to do projects, data science projects, can you give some examples of projects that they can pick up where they can apply data science in the software development, front end, back end, those kind of areas?
So basically, when it comes to problem statements, right? So many people face this issue, how to understand a problem statement. So let me give an example. When you're studying in school or college, right? You have a subject maths where a teacher, lecturer, or sir even teaches you a problem. He gives a problem statement, asks you to use a particular formula, and when he presents it, right, you can see it. So when you practice it, you can understand it. So when he explains it, he gives you one problem statement. But when it comes to an exam, right, you get another problem statement. So use an accordingly tool or you use an according formula to it. Similarly happens here. When you take a course up, right, even if you are outside, so the same thing, you get a problem statement here. And when you go in real life projects, right, you get another problem statement. So you have to use this tools or techniques accordingly to get a valid output to it. And if you can build up these projects like e-commerce, music player app or video streaming app, where eventually you can use this analytical part and understand which user is using particular product or which user is using a particular series or a song accordingly. By that you can analyze and eventually use an SEO accordingly, and you can eventually boost your product. By that one help your team in which you can understand which way they should build up the architecture flow where the user is coming up or stepping up into it.
Right. Great. Okay. We'll just take some questions because I see a lot of questions coming in, and then we will go ahead with the discussion. So I can see a few questions about the applications of ChatGPT in web development. Can you throw some light on that? Now that generative AI everybody is talking about it, and ChatGPT is not the only generative AI tool. Actually, there are so many others out there, but there's just a lot of hype around ChatGPT. But how is that integrated into web development, and where do you see it going actually?
Okay, if you see that, right, if you build up a chat application, if you build up an e-commerce application, right, where that eventually can use an AI, open AI integration into it, train the model accordingly. Whenever the user types a particular thing, right, you can get the particular information according to that. And other than that, if a person uses a particular product, you can eventually research on build up a model in that such a way where if you open an e-commerce app or a website, and you click on a particular product, you can show up the references or articles accordingly. If you build up a chat application, right, you can eventually show, if you see the Gmail thing, right, eventually they build up an AI thing. So eventually when the type up, right, you can eventually show the sentences accordingly there. Or that particular way, we can use a chat, a GPT into it, and the show users like this thing, how it works into it, or how you can show the preferences to it, right, accordingly. That way you implement or use it.
Right. So, Krishna, you spoke about a lot of internships that you have done, right?
Yes.
And every internship added a lot to your experience. So there are a few questions on that. Probably these are all fresh graduates. They're asking, what are the different ways of getting internships? Can you help them understand how do they get these opportunities?
So basically, internships means people will pay you. You don't need to pay for internships, or you don't need to work freely. And one more thing is like internship is equivalent to almost full time. Full time people just work for like 18 hours maybe. Or interns work like 6 to 7 hours, which is almost like you got, both people work on the same real time project. Doesn't mean like they'll just keep you, train you. Internship is like you just work part time. Full time is like you work full time. So internship where you work on real time project. So before getting onto that, you have to build this kinds of project like basic project, intermediate project, and complex thing. So if you see basic projects like the login screen, register, profile thing, and intermediate project is like building a portfolio, creating an advanced animations or flexible or complex UI accordingly. And then complex projects is like you're building a logical part for it. You're building this e-commerce thing where you're only a front-end developer. So you add a product to the cart. You can see that's where the logical functionality comes in, and eventually you add another product and you see a total, right? A plus B equal to C. So that's where the logical functionalities come in, the login part, where you eventually can see like this email is registered or not. So these kinds of parameters and this kind of logical projects, if you can build up, right, a streaming platform using an open AI thing. There are many open APIs out there where you can integrate in the website itself. So if you're building a complex projects, right, logical functionality, API integration, and building a complex UI and building it user friendly. So if you build these kinds of projects, right, I'm 100% sure anyone out there will hire you, because companies out there look for people who are very much into this logical operations or building up the complex UI out there. So if you can do these things accordingly, anyone can hire you. They don't see which kind of background you're coming from. They don't see if you're coming from IIT Bombay or IIT Madras. They only see like logical functionality implementation are there or not. That's it.
So once these projects are built, on which platforms can they showcase these projects so that they get these kind of interests? Where
Okay, well,
can one search for these opportunities?
okay, well, once you build up a project, right, you can use GitHub to host the project, or you can use Netlify to it. These are free, right? So eventually you can use free platforms and host your projects there. And that's where eventually you can showcase them easily instead of running it on local host and eventually showcasing people every single time, because sometimes the code might not work on a particular time. So if you can host it on Netlify, or if you can host it on this GitHub thing, right, that would be flexible for people to showcase, or even if you send your resume out there, they can just click on the link and eventually see your project accordingly.
Yeah, so GitHub is one platform that you mentioned. The other, I didn't get the other name.
Netlify, Netlify. It's an open source thing where people can come up and host their projects there. It's completely free.
Okay, great. So for the benefit of our audience today, I'm typing that in the chat. It is Netlifyi.
Let me type it up.
FLY. Okay. Yeah, so it is Netlify. Netlify. GitHub is something all of you do work on as part of the bootcamp here. And LinkedIn is, of course, a platform which gives a lot of scope to showcase.
And also one more thing, I want to add another thing. When you start your career in this development side, even if it's the data science or any tech part of it, when you start building projects, right, start using LinkedIn. Connect with right set of people who you think this thing can reach out. When you start building a project, or you can say like, I've joined this course. So you can post on LinkedIn saying like, I've started, joined this course, I've completed it. I started building this project. For one project, you can eventually add like 4 to 5 posts saying like, I started building this project. I started getting these errors, and next post you can say like, eventually by searching on Stack Overflow, connecting with senior developers out there, even myself worked on it day and night. I solved those errors, and eventually another post saying like, I have done completed this project. So by that, people will eventually know like, okay, this candidate builds his own project. So let's try to give him an opportunity. So that way your projects, or you can eventually go viral out there, or people can know about it instead of simply going to your profile every single time, know about you. So that way you can eventually start working on that part, especially because people only, if you simply build your projects, right, no one will come to your door and knock you and give you opportunity. You should eventually showcase people like what you're building up or what you're doing out there. So these are the main points no one will mention, but yeah, I'm giving a head start to you all guys, because when I was starting my career, right, so no one has given me this points or the head start to it. So these are the major points which I'm stretching out. It will be helpful a lot for you.
Right. Okay, so another interesting aspect let's talk about. You have turned an entrepreneur, right?
Yeah.
So first question is, what prompted you to take up entrepreneurship, or taking a more safe and secure route, getting a job, ensuring that there's salary coming into your account at the beginning of every month? So what was your motivation? Second is, if somebody wants to get into entrepreneurship, right? Because there are lots of, and you've done freelance as well. You have some freelancing experience also. So a lot of people, if they want to start off with freelancing opportunities and then with entrepreneurial opportunities, how do they go about it? Let us start with freelance. What are the best ways to get freelance job opportunities, and how does actually one go about it? And is
Okay,
it
so
is it a good career choice?
yeah, if you go as an intern or a freelancer, it's a good career. You can eventually earn lakhs and lakhs, like 50 to 1 lakh. Even I earned as a 50K as a freelancer as an intern, right? So similarly, even you guys can also do the same thing, by building up your own projects. For example, think so you work in a company as an intern. Other than a company project, you can eventually build up your own project too, because you simply work on company for more than like 4 to 5 hours. That's it. Remaining time, you can explore other stuff and build more projects into it. So you can eventually build a good portfolio. So when you post it in LinkedIn, right, people out there will reach out to you, giving you as a project, as a contract base, not as an internship. Sometimes they reach out to as an internship, but majority of the time they reach out to as a freelancer because of the post they see you. They can see like, okay, this person is capable of doing this particular thing. So my majority of freelancing opportunities I got from LinkedIn itself by posting on LinkedIn, eventually, because Fiverr and this places platforms is overpowered by this experienced people out there. So it's very difficult to get freelancing opportunities on this Fiverr platform. LinkedIn is a place eventually you can get freelancing opportunities, internship opportunities too. You build up your good portfolio, good projects. They will know you like, okay, you handle the entire project itself. You build your entire project other than your company project. So that's where you can stand out and get opportunity, because freelancing is like not a simple thing, because you have to handle a client there, you have to give them the documentation, you have to give them the architecture flow. So to be prepared yourself out there, you have to work in companies as an intern, where you can understand different portfolios, different positions out there, different tools to be used when a client comes in, how to handle a client. So that's where you can understand how to handle a client. If you can able to handle a client, you can start as a freelancer. Freelancer is riskier, but once you start your career, you start getting projects, right? If you give a good output to a particular client, eventually he'll keep on referring to you. Whenever you get a first client project, right, make sure you give your best to it, even if it's below the pay you get it. It's fine. If you give your best output, right, if you satisfy the first client itself, I'm sure that will be the turning point for you, and eventually you can go easily establish yourself as a freelancer out there. So these are the points which would helpful for you guys when you start your career as an intern or a freelancer.
Right. Also, I'd like to add a little bit to that, Sai Krishna. See, this is, in terms of the larger job ecosystem, there is something called gig economy, right? Have you heard of gig economy? There's a question to all the audience here. Have you heard this term gig economy? Okay. Do you understand what is a gig? The literal English meaning of it? Do you understand? Do you know what is a gig? Not geek, it is GIG, gig. A gig is a short-term task. It's not meant to be a long-term thing, right? A gig means you just do some performance and then come back. So now that concept is being taken and applied into the job scenario. It's called the gig economy. Gig doesn't mean something big. It doesn't mean something long-term. Gig means something very short, specific, and for one particular purpose. Okay, a lot of companies are going into the gig economy thing, and for gig economy, they need freelancers, because the hire is just for one particular project, or that it's a contract, it's a short-term contract, right? And there are multiple of them. It's once you get into it through word of mouth, through references, a lot of things keep coming through. Like Sai Krishna rightly said, how you present your portfolio is very, very important, and how you satisfy your first client is very, very important. Once that is done, then in this era of gig economy, it is not very, very challenging to get freelancing opportunities. They are there out there. Okay. So that probably could be one of the areas. Those of you who have had a career gap, for example, right? So while you're doing the bootcamp simultaneously, you can also probably look out for these kind of opportunities. They'll definitely add on to your profile. Sai Krishna, coming to the second part of it, entrepreneurship.
Okay, if you see entrepreneurship, right? So the same thing comes in because me, when I started my career, I have no idea what is entrepreneurship, meaning what that does mean, how you start a company, how you become an entrepreneur, how you do these things, how you handle things, how you build your product, how you make it as a private limited or a one-person company. So eventually, me working in different startups, that was one of the main reasons for me. Because when I started my career, my goal was just going into becoming one of the most senior developer, becoming a tech core techie or a tech mentor out there. That's what I have done it. But yeah, so me simultaneously work.
Can't hear you.
You can hear me, right? Is it
Yes.
audible?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
sorry for the inconvenience. Okay, I got it. No worries. So me simultaneously working in one by one startup. So connecting with the founders, directly. That's where the one of the best thing happens when you work in a startup. You can eventually connect with the core team itself, the director, the staff founder, the CEOs. So I have an opportunity there, eventually connecting the CEOs out there, founders out there, connecting. They would eventually tell me like this is the process, standard procedure operating system where eventually this is how you hire a team. These are the positions out there. So this is how you get a client onto it. If you get a client, how you do handle a client into it. If you start services, right? So what kind of team is required? How you analyze the client problem statement? So me working in the startups of different sectors, healthcare, automation, sanitation sector, or service sector, I was eventually able to understand like, okay, this is a set of team I need to have first before to start a company, and then this is how I have to establish myself out there. Because if you are an entrepreneur, right, if you start your journey into this, even you have to have a skill side by side. Think so. You started in this entrepreneurship your journey. You started building a company, and the product fails a certain time. So to sustain yourself and the company itself, you need to depend on the skill which you have. Even it may be a non-tech or tech thing. Because right now I am a full stack developer. So if my startup eventually stops at a particular time, I can eventually go as a freelancer out there, eventually build a project, I can resume the thing. So this is the main parts required when you go as journey. You need to have a skill particularly. So to make sure to ensure you financially aid yourself when it's required out there. And then that's the main thing. Again, the main funda. You're working in startups. You can analyze the things. You can eventually point out the pros and cons. Because when you work in a startup, right, eventually they make mistakes. So you can eventually see what mistakes they are making to ensure you will not make these mistakes. And eventually go on a path where you face new obstacles, not facing the old obstacles and solving them instantly. Facing the new obstacles and eventually working on these new parts of it. So that's where the things come up on this. Entrepreneurship is a journey where, you motivate yourself because eventually every day is like eventually you have to motivate yourself, motivate your team itself. If you are down, depression, these things, right? Eventually your team will be down. The idea of working on it will be down. You just need to have faith on yourself. The idea of working on it to it. So main parts, these are the main things and main concepts out there which have to focus on you when you start your career into these things.
Right. Yeah. So entrepreneurship is not just about knowing technology, it is about knowing how to run a business. It includes everything from admin work to finance work. So that is a big, big thing in itself. And congratulations to you. You've been doing it successfully for at least 10 years now.
Even our company itself, we only take freelancers at the moment. Like everyone, we are a team of 11 members. So everyone is a freelancer. The designer, the front end, the back end, the full stack DevOps. Everyone is a freelancer because it's for them to easily to work accordingly to them, according to the timelines, and there is no pressure at all. So that's the main advantage in freelancing. You can work accordingly and make sure the deadlines are fixed, right? So you can work. You don't need to work particularly 3 hours or 4 hours a day. You can work for 6 hours a day and rest of the week you can take off. So that's where the freelancers come in, and that's where my company full of freelancers. That's it.
Yes. So again, reinforcing the fact that freelancing is freelancing. Lots of opportunities are in freelancing as well. Okay, great. So let me take a few more questions in the meanwhile. Okay, Sai Krishna, will it be okay for you to share your LinkedIn ID? Because a lot of people are
Yeah,
asking.
sure, I can. Just give me.
And if you could change the two settings to everyone instead of hosts and
Sure,
panelists.
just give me a second.
So, Priya, to answer your question, how should we work on LinkedIn profile if you have just started learning new technologies with no previous work experience? That's absolutely okay. There are a lot of things you can showcase if you've done any kind of a small, even if it's a small project, some paper that you worked on, different projects that you worked on. You can make connections with a lot of people. You can follow a lot of people who are doing well in within that segment. So there are multiple ways in which you can use LinkedIn. Um, in fact, as part of your career services program, there'll also be a session on building your LinkedIn profile. So you will get to know a lot more during that session. But yeah, it's everybody has to start somewhere. You don't have to come with work experience to build a LinkedIn profile. Any tips on that, Sai Krishna, because you have very effectively used LinkedIn. What are the, let us say, three top things that somebody has to do to optimize their LinkedIn profile?
When you post a particular post on LinkedIn, right, you keep it sweet and short. You don't need to simply write paragraphs and paragraphs. You just keep it sweet because people out there who read it, right, there are people like office people or the people are entrepreneurs, people like me. So we see like how short and crisp the text is, how we can eventually say like, yeah, you can eventually define it in like 10, 20 lines. That's the max thing I would say. You don't need to stretch it fully. Even if you see my post, right, just keep it in a short and dignified manner and connect with right set of people. For example, you're going into web development career, right? So you eventually can search in LinkedIn search like web development. So web developers, you can find a lot of people out there. You can send requests, you can send connections, you can text them. So when these people like your profile, like a particular post of yours, right, it will reach thousands of people. For example, I have the connections of 3,500. So when I like a particular post, right, many people will see to it. So the reach gets higher and higher. So if you accept right kind of people on LinkedIn, you don't simply accept, okay, my friend send me a LinkedIn connection. It's not an Instagram thing. So it's a LinkedIn, right? So eventually you connect with right set of people and accept people request who adds value to your profile itself. If you do that, surely you can improve your LinkedIn reach and posts, that way. That's it.
Yes, that's a
What
very,
kind
very
of
important
technical
point.
information too? You working on a project, you faces issues. You didn't find any developer solving this issue. So you can eventually post a solution out there, writing a blog out there, and posting the blog link and the errors and solution out there. So which would eventually, open source work out there. It will help a lot of people out there, and it's a good work to do that particular part, especially.
Yes. One mistake that a lot of people do while building their LinkedIn profile is accept just about any friend request that comes.
Yes, yes.
So, like you very rightly said, there's a difference between LinkedIn and Instagram. It is not an Instagram account where the number of followers, the quantity of followers matters. LinkedIn is a platform where the quality of your connections matters.
Then if
So,
you have 100 connections, it's fine. Those 100 quality connections, if you have, I have 3,500 connections. Doesn't mean like every single person will react on my post or like my post. So you should ensure like you have good reach people. Even if you have 100 people, right? You should ensure like these 100 set of people are worth being in your LinkedIn profile or your connections.
great. Great interacting with you, Sai Krishna. Just to summarize a few things that came out through our discussion of the last 1 hour. First thing is there are multiple ways in which data sciences and AI can be applied in the web development space. One of it is the chatbots, because chatbots need data to give answers to queries. Somebody has to ensure that the chatbot has enough information, curated information, cleaned up information so that it can interact with them. So that is one definite area. Second area is marketing analytics, where you can analyze different web pages and see um, the interaction of traffic with different elements of the web page. And based on that intelligence, the website can be further optimized. Right, so there are multiple applications of data sciences and AI, ML in web development as well. Second thing is there is opportunity, a good number of opportunities out there for freelance work. But to do that, you will have to create a good profile. And a profile doesn't mean you need real-time work. It can be projects that you have worked on, And projects in today's web world, a lot of projects are available. So identify your problem statement, and that is another area that you can definitely work on. Third is your LinkedIn profiles are important, especially if you're starting out in a new area, to build credibility for yourself. LinkedIn is a great platform. So ensure that you're using that optimally, showcasing your work in a good manner and showcasing it to people that matter. Not just your profile, in fact, it should also be a part of multiple groups that are there on LinkedIn. And when it comes to LinkedIn, one thing that I have noticed is the frequency with which you post, the interactions that you have, how effectively, how actively you're using the platform makes a lot of difference to the reach that you get. If you only log in once a week and just like one post, then when you post something also, it's not going to reach people. That's how the LinkedIn algorithm works. So the more active you are, the more LinkedIn will push you out to different people. Sai Krishna, anything else? Any last words of wisdom?
And also, if you are using LinkedIn, right, if you have good connections out there, right, you simply cannot like every single post which you have on a feed. You should ensure that, because when you like a particular post, right, the connections will be able to see like this particular person has liked a particular post. If in case it's irrelevant, right, so people might, remove you as a connection, or people might, unfollow you. So that's the one of the main aspect or incident which I faced in my early days of the career. So liking a right kind of post or informative post, because people randomly start posting memes on LinkedIn recent days too. If you keep on liking them, right, people will not find informative from your perspective. The posts you are getting it, the connections you have. So this is one of the more points I would add. That's it.
Yes, yes. And LinkedIn is a much more effective resume that you build than your actual a single page resume. Everything that you've done on LinkedIn is there on your profile. We can track you back to the number of years of activities that you've been doing. So ensure that you do the right kind of engagement, right kind of quality engagements. So if a prospective recruiter is coming to your profile and going through your profile, they see that you have been engaged with people who are able to contribute to your knowledge base. That will really be another point that came up during the discussion is that, especially in the startup sector, and trust me, startup sector is not a risky place to start. Even if you're getting a job, don't reject a company because it is a startup, because that will give you amazing exposure, amazing learning. You learn more in a startup than anywhere else. And startup that's doing good is a good place to start your career with. Transitioning careers, startups are always open to accepting. Right? It's not about the background that you come from. It is more to do with your skill set. So work on that. Ensure that you have a lot of practical experience in terms of working on projects and problem statements. And whether it's web development or whether it is data analytics or data science, you will be able to eventually make it there. So that's it from me. Sai Krishna, any last word before we wind up?
From my side, is like, even if you do any courses, it's fine. Just keep on building the project itself. It's like if you start a development career, right? It's not like you reach to a position like a senior developer or a junior developer. You have to keep on coding your entire life. Even the creators of React or this thing, right? They keep on coding it. So it's not like it's like not ending it. It's like never ending. Just keep on building the project. Keep on skilling them every day. Learn new things. Make sure you are good with latest trending technologies out there, which companies hire or which people eventually use out there, the companies out there. So this is the main aspect I want to highlight. That's it. Just keep on building the projects, just keep on learning it, sharing it. That's it.
Great. Thank you, Sai Krishna. Thank you so much for your insights. We have never spoken about freelance and gig economies and these kind of things on the platform before. So good that you came on, you helped us understand that part of the job market as well. Thank you so much. And that's it then. Let's wind up for today, and we'll be back with another Odin Talk session next week, next Friday. So all the best. Until then, yes, the recordings will be available, like you all know. You can go to the LMS and you can access the recordings once it's uploaded. Srinivas, over to you.
Yes, yeah. Thank you, Shruti. Thank you so much for addressing this wonderful session. And once again, it's a great pleasure to have you, Sai Krishna, in this session. Like Shruti ma'am said, we have learned a lot. So, and the students have learned a lot, and that what they have to work on. So the basic roots that they have to work on. So the each and every step that they have to learn in the coming future sessions. and everything. So like, yeah, guys, so please make sure so what you want to learn, in the future endeavors, what you will be doing. So please make sure you're learning perfectly.
I see a lot of questions coming up on LinkedIn. So we'll ensure that in one of the coming weeks, we will do a session exclusively on building up your LinkedIn profile, right? As soon as one of the speaker is available, because that is really a very important platform for people to make these professional connections. We will come back with a session dedicated to LinkedIn profile building. So yeah, so please look out for that. Thank you.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. That's it, guys. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, team. Thank you so much. So we'll meet again in next session.
Sure. Thanks, Sai Krishna. Bye-bye. Bye, everyone. Have a good week.
Yes.